Opposition previews are back, joined by Mike from the Ealing Road podcast. How you doing, mate?
All good, Luke. How are you, mate?
Yeah, really good, mate. Recording this the day after Villa beat Bruges, so happy Villa fan all round, to be fair. So talk to me about Brentford's season then, reflecting on what's happened so far. How's it going?
Yeah, it's been good, mate. I can't really complain too much. I think there was a lot made at the start of the season about Brentford's away form, and our home form. We were really good. Away from home, we were not so great. But I think you're starting to see now with the kind of way that the fixtures fell. We played a lot of the good teams in that opening run away from home. I think our first kind of 6-7 away from home were games against Liverpool, City, Arsenal. Sorry, not Arsenal. Liverpool, City, Man United, Spurs, yourselves. It was a lot of tough games away from home. And I don't think we played necessarily badly in any of those games, but just didn't have quite enough to get over the line for whatever reason. We actually went 1-0 up in quite a few of those games and ended up losing out narrowly. But I think our home form has been good throughout the whole season, really. It's only started to falter a little bit now. Brentford are actually winless in 7, I believe, at home at the moment. So we're due a win at home. But yeah, our away form's kind of...
To be fair, we're that team that generally, if you're in a bad run of form, you play us and it always sorts itself out. So I'm not really looking forward to that record. I'm not reading into that at all, mate.
No, fair enough. I feel like Brentford are a team like that as well. We're kind of, whenever a team's been playing bad or in a run of poor form, we're always kind of keen to hand over 3 points for some reason or another. But yeah,
I think the thing with that though is like when you look at it and you think, oh, it's always us, and you're saying it happens to you. I imagine it happens to like every team, but you just always think it's just you, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know why, but genuinely, we do this where a team will be out of form and we don't decide to turn up. But I mean, having said that, we did play Leicester a couple of weeks ago, put in a really good performance against them. We played Everton at home, which at the moment is not an easy fixture, and we were 1-0 up for that whole game. Probably were quite lucky to actually come away with a point from that. I don't know if you watched the game, but Beto had a 3 1-on-1s against our keeper and he came out on top. So yeah, I can't really complain too much, Luke. It's been a good season. I think Saturday's game is actually a big one for us. Just looking at the table, in terms of kind of keeping the pace with the rest of the Europe chasing teams, it's so tight in and around there. Like from all the way, kind of from Forest in 3rd, all the way down to I'd even probably say Palace because they're in quite good form in 12th and they're on 36. City are on 47, so only 11 points really separates those teams. But in terms of Saturday, if we were to get a win, we would really kind of keep up with that pack chase in Europe. Yourselves, Fulham, Brighton, Bournemouth, Newcastle. It's so tight this season, which is what I've really enjoyed about the Prem this season. Those kind of middling teams, the standard of those teams has been really good, which I think is good for the league. Probably not as great for, there's not been like one outstanding team this season apart from Liverpool, and the title race is kind of all but done. But I've enjoyed that kind of aspect of it. Those teams in that middle bracket have been quite competitive against each other, and it's been quite good to kind of see that balance across the league.
Yeah, I've tried to analyse you guys for our match preview, and I had a little look at the Leicester game, and I thought, oh, that shows what Brentford are all about. And then I had a look at the Everton game, and I thought, oh, actually, like Watkins in behind if Beto, do you know what I mean? So it's a bit of a contrast between the two games, really. But I think you're right in sort of talking about the league and how tight and compact it is. And I really wanted to just get your thoughts on sort of like Thomas Frank, because he's probably my second favourite manager in the league after Emery. I just think he's so good. And I watched the bit on Sky about the day in the life of Thomas Frank. Have you seen that?
Yeah. That was good.
It's so sort of like insightful of how a manager works, and when it went to like his analysis team showing him, like, I think it was the Liverpool game that they're analysing, like, I was just so impressed. And when he's on Sky talking and he's breaking down his system, I think he's class. So you've got a great manager. So like, how impressed have you been? Because I remember when we got promoted from the Championship with Dean Smith, and you go on this journey and they're able to like grow. I mean, from where you've been with Frank to see him now competing with massive teams in the Premier League, you must be so like proud of your team and your manager.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we love Thomas Frank. He's taken us from like a stable championship team and pushed us all the way. Kind of, I don't want to say as far as we can go, because I do think that he can take us further. But for us to have now kind of consolidated our status in the Prem, 4th season in a row, we've never really been looking over our shoulder too much. You could say last season was a bit tricky, but I think the massive caveat last season was that our injuries were just horrendous, and they have been for a lot of teams this season. And I understand the argument the manager's got to overcome those injuries, but I think that's testament to Frank in that we weren't really ever in serious trouble. There were a few moments where it was like, okay, right, we need to actually start putting some results together. And I think we did towards the end of the season last term. But I think in terms of the job that Thomas Frank's done in general, 3 teams that have come up this season look like they're going to go straight back down. It was the same last season. So it's obviously getting harder to stay in the Premier League. The standard of the rest of the teams is going up, as we've already mentioned. So for Thomas Frank to come up from the Championship and not spend a lot of money, I think like teams like Forest, who have spent so much money in the amount of players that they signed when they came up, Brentford didn't really do that. I think by and large, a factor of that would be because the team that we come up with from the Championship was probably Premier League ready a season before, so we didn't really have to break the bank when we did come up. But for us to kind of consolidate our status, our record against the top 6 in that season where we almost got Europe was amazing. I don't think that's normal for a manager to like consistently beat top 6 sides at a rate that we did in that season that we almost got Europe. We haven't done that this season. We will need to start taking points off teams above us if we want to get into the European places this season. But yeah, no, Thomas Frank, incredible manager, super flexible in his approach. I think we played to Ivan Toney's strengths a lot when we had him, and now we're starting to see the kind of football that we used to play in the Championship, a little bit more expansive, a little bit more on the ground. So yeah, I think Thomas Frank's a brilliant manager. And I think the only time that Thomas Frank has ever been close to leaving Brentford was actually when Steven Gerrard left Villa, because I know that there were talks between Villa's camp and Thomas Frank, and it was just because Unai Emery then became available that he didn't end up going with him. But that was like the closest I think it ever came to him leaving Brentford. Obviously, there's been links with United and the Spurs job as well. There's been quite a few links, quite a few high-profile links with Thomas Frank, which don't do much for my nerves, because I'd like him to stay at Brentford for a long time. But yeah, I can't really fault Thomas Frank. There's a few criticisms I could level at his playing style, but in terms of like what he's done for Brentford and where he could take Brentford potentially this season or the season after, yeah, love the man. Great manager.
Yeah, very impressive. So just touching on tactically then your style this season. I remember a few seasons ago, you sort of sometimes had a 5 at the back and you'd alternate with a 4 at the back, etc. But am I right in saying that you're pretty much a 4 at the back at the minute? Is that how you are generally approaching most games now?
Yeah. He's kind of, so you're spot on. I think in the first kind of few seasons, whenever we'd play a team, above us in the table as one of the teams from the top 6, or we had a bit more quality in attacking positions, he did used to kind of deploy that back 5 for a little bit more defensive solidity and kind of try and hurt teams on the break. This season, I think the difference is that we don't have Ivan Toney as the outlet. So when we are kind of sitting in that low block, it's been more difficult to get out this season. Whereas when last season we were camped on the edge of our box with 5 at the back, and we knew that we had Ivan Toney, someone that can win fouls and occupy defenders and bring others into play. He was a great outball to have. But I think this season, we have actually gone into a back 5 this season, but I don't think I've seen it in quite a long time. We're kind of just going pound for pound with some of the big boys this season, which is good to see, because it's not like we're ever getting blown away in games. So yeah, this season I think the back 4 has worked. We've got Keane Lewis-Potter, who we signed as a winger, who has played at wing about 3 times in his Brentford career, just because of the injuries. We've got a full-back. He's doing a great job deputising in that left-back role. And yeah, I think we've brought in a couple of defenders this season. We're a little bit more solid. Nathan Collins is having a really great season. Sepp van den Berg was having a good season until he got injured at West Ham. So it would be Ethan Pinnock on Saturday, I believe, who didn't have the best game against Everton, to be honest. He was at fault for all 3 of Beto's chances going in behind. So he's going to be giving Ollie Watkins a torrid time. Other way around, sorry. Ollie Watkins is going to be giving him a torrid time, especially considering that they know each other quite well. From their Brentford days, and he gave Ethan Pinnock a torrid time at Villa Park, if I'm remembering correctly, in the reverse fixture, with the penalty and just a number of chances, especially in that first half, which I'm sure we'll talk about for Villa, that you should have really been home and dry from in that first half. But it was a weird game that on the Wednesday night. We kind of didn't really like our setup that day.
No, I was very worried about that game, and you didn't really hurt us in a way that I thought you would have done, really. But we've got to talk about two players, Wissa and Mbuemo, who are, from a neutral, so dynamic and just in a way that you know what they're about, you know what they're going to do, but how do you stop it? It is so difficult to stop them, and I think probably in years gone by, I've always thought, oh, Mbuemo's the one, but Wissa this season, like the goals that he's popping, or that Everton one where, you know, it hits the bar, he's the one that reacts. He's so impressive, and I think I don't know whether he's underrated, but I actually, yeah, I'd probably say he's massively underrated because I think if anyone said who's Brentford's best player, they'd probably say Mbuemo. But for me, Wissa, so good. I mean, how good's that front line and just like how do you stop it if how are teams sort of stopping that front line?
Well, I mean, it would be hard to say that they are, to be honest, with the amount of goals they've both scored. So it's difficult to stop them. You're absolutely right in the way that they kind of interchange. The play between each other is it's immense. I think they're the most productive duo in the Premier League this season, meaning they assist and they assist each other for goals quite a lot. And yeah, no, they're so fun to watch. Honestly, they're great mates off the pitch. I think that translates on the pitch as well. They're always interchanging, and Mbuemo's the kind of one that hugs the right channel, but he'll always come deep and try to feed a Wissa. Whenever one of them gets on the ball, you'll notice on Saturday, whenever one of them gets the ball in a bit of space, their head's up straight away, and the other one's looking to get in behind straight away. That's what I've loved about Brentford this season. We've been direct, but in a different way. I feel like a lot of it comes down to that chemistry between Wissa and Mbuemo. That whenever one of them's on the ball, the other one is looking to get in behind and spin and go. And Wissa, yeah, I think Wissa's been incredible too. He's a really good finisher. We actually signed him as a winger, and now he's finally kind of in the position that we all wanted him to be in, because we always thought he was better as a 9. And once Ivan Toney vacated that position, it kind of opened up a bit of space for Wissa to become that central 9 in the team. And this season, he's been fantastic. He's been a great finisher. He's been good at linking the play. He's good in the air, as you saw against Everton with that kind of flying fish dive across the line. That was a brilliant goal. I really love watching that. But one other player that I do want to give some love to was actually the player that scored in the reverse fixture. Mikkel Damsgaard has absolutely exploded this season, and he's been our best. But you said if people were looking at Brentford, they say Brian Mbuemo has been our best player this season. Mikkel Damsgaard, without a doubt, has been cream of the crop for Brentford. He's been the creative force in midfield, and he's just like a genuine all-rounder. He's so good in attacking areas. He's so good defensively as well. He's got twinkle toes, such great feet, such great technical ability. So yeah, he's one to watch. We've recently tied him down to a long-term contract, but he has been just electric. He's been a joy to watch this season. He's got 10 assists, but he's really high in terms of the rest of his metrics, in terms of the rest of Europe's top 5 leagues. If you have FBref or anything like that, I'd thoroughly recommend going and looking at his stats across the progressive passes, progressive carries, passes into the penalty area. He's really high up in those metrics in the Prem and in Europe. So yeah, Mikkel Damsgaard, Brian Mbuemo, Johan Wissa. That's the kind of that's the attack that we've got, and we've also got Kevin Schade, who's quite good as well. So yeah, going forward, it's not really been a problem this season. It's defending our goal that's been an issue at times, Luke.
Yeah, I was going to touch on Damsgaard, but you've already done it, so we don't need to go there. But yeah, the thing that I was going to sort of say is that forward 3, it's fluid, and that's what I've been impressed with as well. And so when I'm looking at your sort of season, the one game where I feel like was a massive missed opportunity because of what's happened in the FA Cup is the FA Cup game, losing to Plymouth. Do you feel like that was a massive missed opportunity? And did you rotate much for that game?
Yeah, he made 7 changes. 7.
Why did he do that?
No, that's what I said earlier. I can't really fault Thomas Frank. I can fault Thomas Frank sometimes for his team selection in cup matches, because I don't really get it. I don't really get it for a team that, whilst we do have ambitions to finish in the European places this season, it's always going to be extremely difficult with the caliber of teams in and around us, yourselves, your Bournemouths, your Brightons, your Fulhams. They're all very good teams. So the chance of us finishing in Europe is quite slim, considering we're the kind of outside chance now. So I just think, sort of disregarding cup competitions and thinking you can get past Plymouth, who then beat Liverpool in the next round, thinking you can play a second string team against Newcastle in the Carabao Cup, despite beating them at home a couple of weeks before. Those are the decisions that I just think, come on, as fans, like a deep cup run, especially in the Carabao Cup, we're only 2 games away from a final at Wembley. For him to not play Mbuemo, he missed Norgard, he missed Damsgaard out of the starting lineup. It's just like, I can't believe we're really prioritising the league when we've got such an outside shot of finishing in those European places. And then what it does is puts more pressure on the league form. Like if we now, obviously, as Brentford fans, we can't have too much expectations can't be too high, but to kind of put all of your eggs in one basket so early on and sacrifice the FA Cup and sacrifice the Carabao Cup. And now the only thing we've got left this season in terms of the chance of kind of not it being a success, because I think it being a success is staying in the Premier League every season for Brentford, but for it to like be memorable, all of our eggs are in the European basket. So yeah, that was a big missed opportunity, and it didn't go down well with the fans in terms of all those changes, because we were really, really rigid that day. Never really looked like beating Plymouth, who were bottom of the Championship at the time. And it was just a little bit naive. And it's not the first time that Thomas Frank has kind of sacrificed those cup runs in order to kind of focus on the league. But, can't get too angry because, you got to be grateful for the position that we're in. But it would have been like a big opportunity, especially if you get a favourable cup run. I mean, look at your guys' next fixture against Preston. You're 1 game away from a Wembley semi-final, and those are the memories that you remember. Those are the things that you remember as a fan, going to Wembley. And we haven't really had that since the playoff final, but we've never had that in terms of an FA Cup or a Carabao Cup or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I hear that. So what are your thoughts on Villa being this season?
Really good. I mean, I've been impressed, particularly with the European form. And of course, you're in the quarterfinal of the FA Cup as well. The league form is a bit strange, Luke. It's been inconsistent. I don't know if it's like the Champions League hangovers, because I know that it's been a problem for you guys playing midweek and then coming back to the Premier League on a Saturday. But as soon as it starts to kind of, I remember you had a good result recently, and then you lost your last game in the league, and it's like there's never been that level of consistency that we've seen from Villa in previous seasons under Emery. And I don't know if that's just purely down to the fact that you're playing more games and the level of opposition that you're playing in those games is higher. But I mean, I think the business that you did in January was a real statement of intent in terms of bringing in those, like, you're adding Champions League pedigree to an already strong squad. So I think that the aim for Villa over the next few years, and particularly this season as well, is go deep in the Champions League. I'd like to know, and I'll ask you when we do like my version of this, but I'll ask you what you would prefer as Villa fans. If someone were to offer you the FA Cup or a deep run in the Champions League, say you get to like the semi-finals or the final, what would you take? Because I know that there's different perks to both, but Villa have spent quite a lot of money in recent years, so that like the PSR stuff, you've got to factor that in as well. But yeah, what's your take on that?
It's so tough. There's your football fan on field and football fan off field, and now it's so important off field as opposed to just what happens on it. Do you know what I mean? Like the Champions League run, winning games, you're getting something like £3 million every time you win a game. And when we got into the top 8 and qualified top 8, we got like 9 million. Like, so the value of what you're getting, you mentioned PSR, like deep Champions League. I think we're going to be like touching on nearly 80, 90 million just for this Champions League campaign. So that is so crucial to us sort of like continuing and growing as a club. So yeah, that is important. But then we haven't won a trophy since 1996. That is also very important to football fans. And sort of I always look at it like as a fan being greedy, I want the title, but then what do I want for the football club? I want it to be able to be sustainable. So it's such a tough decision, but I think this season, like you mentioned, being in the Premier League, it's been quite difficult and managing it. So I'm gonna have to say trophy, mate. I think I'm gonna have to say trophy now.
I think so. Like, those are the memories, isn't it? It's the stuff.
Yeah. Like and what do you do when you win a trophy? Like I haven't seen us win one, so I don't know what you do. Like so, I think from a personal level that'll be huge, and I just feel like if we win that trophy, it'll do so much for us as a club as well. So, yeah, I think I'm edging towards trophy now.
No, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. I think I'd go the same, definitely. But obviously, you pointed out that the off the pitch stuff is so important at the moment, especially because you guys have been big spenders in recent years, but you've had a lot of outgoings too. But no, I'd go with the trophy as well. Correct decision for me, Luke.
Cool. So this game, I just don't like it, mate. I'm not gonna lie. Like I've been to your stadium a few times, and we're not the greatest there anyway, and you're very good at home anyway. You mentioned that record earlier, and you were right in earlier when you were saying like we had a really good week a few weeks ago. We drew with Liverpool at home. We beat Chelsea at home. We're all starting to think, oh, our season's now back on track in the Premier League, and then we get battered against Palace away. Like our away form is really bad at the minute. So, and how we get hurt in games is by transitional football. Your attack, is something that we would really struggle against. So what do you think we can expect from playing at your stadium?
I think it's going to be different to the reverse fixture because I think in that game in particular, the ease with which you guys just kind of broke through our midfield so easily. I remember like Morgan Rogers gave us such an awful evening that night. He was absolutely everywhere. It was the first time I've seen him play in the flesh this season. And wow, what a player he is. He's unbelievable. I think he's amazing. And he was everywhere. He tore us to shreds that day. But the key thing for me that day was that we didn't have Christian Norgard in midfield, who's kind of, he's our captain first of all, and he's been so integral to kind of Brentford's rise from the Championship and our kind of consolidation in the Prem. And he's just such like a calming voice in midfield. He's a bit of a disruptor. He just he makes everyone around him better. And we were missing him that night, which I think was a big miss. But in terms of like what we can expect from Brentford on Saturday, with Christian Norgard in the team, everyone plays better. So I think he missed out against Everton, and I did think we lacked a little bit in midfield. Hopefully he's going to be back for the Villa game because he had a concussion. So I don't think it was like kind of a long-term injury. So he's going to be back for the game. But yeah, I mean, at home we've been really exciting. Not so much recently because the home form has kind of fell off a cliff. We played like Liverpool, Forest, Arsenal, Everton in that run. We lost against Spurs as well. So, and Plymouth was tracked in there too. So like I said, I think we're winless in 7, I want to say, at home at the moment. But finally kind of stopped that rot by getting a point against Everton. And we were decent against Everton in the first half, but kind of the game, it was never a game that I thought we were running away with at any point. And I realised Everton are in great form at the moment. I think that was their 7th game unbeaten under Moyes since he came in. So it's difficult to call how we'll play at home. In terms of kind of what we've been like this season, it is that we have been really good in the transitions. We have been really good at getting the ball from back to front very quickly. And when we've been at our best, and that kind of relies on the front 4 being at their best too, but when we have been at our best, we can be quite, no, I say devastating. We have been devastating at points this season, especially with the teams like under us in the Prem. The only thing that I haven't seen so far is that kind of form against the teams that are above us. Only once have I seen that, and that was against Newcastle when we beat them 4-2 at home. And in that game, we were superb in every aspect of the pitch. But again, that game, there's a caveat with that because we had our kind of record signing playing that day, Igor Thiago, who was billed as this Ivan Toney replacement, who's only played 2 games for Brentford since we signed him at the start of the season, just because of injuries and stuff. So it's really difficult. Like, I feel like Brentford and Villa are having quite similar seasons in the league in that we're very, very inconsistent. But when we're good, we're really good. When we're bad, we're not terrible, but we do get beat. And that's kind of, I don't know. It's been quite inconsistent. It's difficult to call Brentford this year, Luke. We've been good in points and bad in points too.
Sounds like it's got 0-0 written all over it then. But cancel each other out, and it'll be a 0-0. Anyway, it's been great having you back on the channel, mate. Great having your insight into everything Brentford. It's spot on. So I'll tag you in the title and description. So cheers for coming on, mate.
Nice one, Luke. Appreciate it.